Forward to the cloud. All right, so this is the June meeting. It is June, yeah, it's still June. It's the June meeting of the koha-US Consortia Special Interest Group. I did send out a message saying if anybody wants to put anything on the agenda, go ahead and do it. I didn't get the date right on the agenda, but nobody put anything on it anyway, so it doesn't really matter probably. So I don't know if anybody has anything they want to talk about or anything they wanted to bring to the meeting or what's going on. So we can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. So.
I have a well, it's not necessarily a problem. We're trying to make a decision. And I brought this up in the circulation SIG, but it's somewhat of a consortium issue. Do any of you have the system preference OPAC renewal allowed kind of turned on or set to allow? I'm wondering, like, okay, does that allow libraries who don't want auto renewal?
I don't know how it affects auto renewal because we don't have auto renewal turned on.
When you turn on auto renew, it takes away the ability to manually renew stuff. It just replaces that option with this will auto renew on whatever date.
Okay.
We have auto renew, but only a couple of the libraries in our consortium use automatic renewals and the other ones don't. And it seems to work because we do have that turned on. I wasn't in on when we made all those changes, so I'm not entirely sure how it works, but we have it set so that we have the no renewals before set on the individual loan rules. So that might be what's helping us with that.
Okay.
We don't have the OPEC, we have Aspen, but all our libraries agreed to do auto renewal. We didn't really give them a choice. It's just too complicated otherwise for our state's reports and stuff.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have a tangential auto renewal question. Is there any way to suppress auto renewal for certain item types? For example, our ILLs are getting auto renewed and we don't want that.
Yeah, those are all just set at the individual in the circles,
that's right.
the individual
That's right.
lines. So you can opt to not turn them off for any item type or patron type.
Yeah, I knew that, but I just forgot. And when you said it, it hit me. Sorry about that.
Cool.
We ran into an issue at one point where some of our lost items were getting renewed. So you can also, there's in the system preferences a place where you can tell them which lost statuses aren't allowed to renew too, which is helpful. I think it was our claims returns that were being weird.
Do you remember which preference that was?
Bywater fixed it for me, so.
Oh.
I bet if you just do a search for renew, you're going to get a lot of preferences.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of results if you just do a search for renew in the system preferences.
Okay.
Interestingly, there's a setting for items denied renewal.
Oh, I think that's what well, that's items though.
And you can specify the item type or the collection code that.
Yeah, oh, and that's where we have the item lost that you can also do the item lost status in there.
So it'll do a status as well as
It says
item type or
ours says
collection
item
code.
lost, and then in brackets it has all of the numbers of the lost codes that we don't want to renew.
I think that's probably a separate one because this one appears to only allow collection codes and item types.
It's item denied renewal. It works to do lost
Oh, okay.
statuses as well. It just
They
must
don't-
not be in the
Yeah.
description.
Okay.
I'm looking to see if there's a good entry in the manual for items denied renewal.
Oh, I see. We've got, I actually edited it now. We have the item lost
Hmm.
thing in there. So,
It might come with some of those already set in the
okay.
default.
And the
Here,
description says you can use any field from the items table. So
Right.
Okay.
So you could
I
probably,
pasted. Sorry, George, go ahead.
so you could do it, you know, if you can do it on any field in there, you could do it on author.
Hmm.
You could have specific authors that wouldn't auto renew.
I pasted what's in ours into the chat.
Oh, okay, yeah.
If
Item
that
lost 1,
helps.
2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
all very useful.
I would say our claims return status is 6, so that's what we just had to add 6 in there. So the ones that were claimed returned didn't get automatically renewed.
And there's a link to the manual, or I guess that's the current manual. I don't know if it's with 2405, but one of the plans that the documentation committee has that I don't know if everybody knows about is they're going to stop doing a separate manual for each release of Koha. They're going to start putting in, this feature was added in this version, and then removing the relevant, the things that are no longer part of Koha. That might make that should make the manual a little easier to manage. So
I'm curious, we don't use the OPEC, we use Aspen, but did someone say when you have auto renewal turned on in the OPEC, manual renewal is turned off by default?
yeah, it's the same in the OPAC and the staff client. Like whenever a branch has auto renewal turned on, then you can't manually renew it, which is the
Ooh.
reason we haven't turned it on for everybody, because some of
that
them want
was
that access.
that was the issue my libraries had too. A couple of people said they would like auto renewal, and then when I explained to them that meant that they wouldn't be able to manually renew things, then they didn't want it anymore.
And they can't override, like say if they want to give a break to someone.
I don't know, because
Check it in, check it out.
Okay.
That's a pretty easy fix around that. I'm pretty sure there's a bug floating out there on making it so you can renew even if that's settings on, but I'll be honest, we haven't had a single library that's had it on that has had an issue once they turned it on, because it's more of like I think one of those things that librarians might care about more than patrons. So
Yeah.
And I just pulled up my one library that's doing it. You can use the override renewals to do that on the staff client, but the OPEC, there's no override.
So when I say we have Aspen, it's based on Koha, of course. So we probably have no manual renewals either, except staff override. Okay.
yeah, I think it works the same. You just haven't heard anything because stuff's just renewing. So they don't need
I'm sure Michelle knows
not
this
worried
and I
about it.
don't, but that's fine. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
What about things where you've set them in the CERC rule not to auto renew? Can the patron still then manually renew?
They
Okay.
should be able to if
Okay.
it's allowed.
Yeah, if you don't have auto renew on, then it's just normal manual renewal. The other thing with auto renew that we ran into a bit of a trouble with sometimes is if you don't have that renewal date set. If it's set at 0, it does it the same day, then sometimes there'll be a message that goes out first that says something's due, and then they'll get a message later in the day that says it was auto renewed. So we just set that a day or two before, and it makes that problem go away.
Where do you set the notice date to go early?
It's that renewal before. I'm not giving you, I'll have to look up what the exact wording is, but it's the column that's just precedes the auto renewal setting. I'll look it up real quick.
Is it no renewal before, I think is the name of it?
Yeah, I believe that's right. Yes, no renewal before. So if you just put like a 1 in there, then what that does is it tells it to renew it a day early. And then it won't mess with, you don't have to reconfigure cron jobs or anything like that. It just renews it if eligible the day before things are due.
I think we ended up, because when we auto renew our items, we renew them for 2 more weeks each time. And instead of doing 14 days, we also did 15 days because then it made it make sense with that. And it just was the logic worked better. One of our other libraries left it at 14 and the patrons don't really seem to notice a difference either way, but it's just kind of a nicer thing for our system.
That way they're due on the same day of the week that they were originally checked out on.
Yeah, that's what,
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We just never have had a complaint, but that's if we do, that's exactly what I'll do.
Things happening on every week makes a lot of sense to me because when I was the bookmobile driver, everything had to be the same day of the week because you were in a different place on a different day of the week.
talk about the bookmobile. We're excited about the development that's going to let you have things on the hold shelf for varying amounts of time. Because now we'll be able to have our bookmobile holds on hold for longer than what's the default for the system. So
yeah, we just wanted that to be set by the branch level. It's even better that you have that fine control over how you can set it.
Yes, that makes sense to me. With well, it's me complaining about Voyager, but that was an issue we had with Voyager when I was using Voyager, is that Voyager wouldn't count the days a library was closed, so you had to, each library had to have their hold expiration period set differently based on the number of days a week they were open. So it was more complicated to manage. To get everybody to be 7 days meant that there was 50 different settings you had to change. But having it, do that when you need to is useful. So as opposed to being forced to set 50 different periods. Anything else going on? Any other renewal or non-renewal issues going on out there?
I have sort of less of that, more of an administrative question. How often do you all convene your members? Like, we have users groups 3 times a year. Do you guys do that 4 times a year?
Quarterly, well, sort of quarterly.
We do it quarterly.
We do it every other month, and then one of those months is we have more of a virtual conference that is longer and a bit more involved.
And is everybody doing? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say we do it quarterly, but we have what's called an executive committee, which is one representative from each library type, then they meet monthly.
We do every other month, but sometimes one gets cancelled, but we have a board meeting, which is a smaller group, like an executive committee. But that's a limited group of 7. They meet monthly and I attend that. But then the full membership meetings are like Bob every second month. Years ago they used to do them monthly, but that changed a long time ago.
Yeah, we used to do monthly meetings. We used to have like that kind of like committee as well, and it was a lot of work, and we just didn't see the value in it, so we just had pared down to that. We could probably go quarterly and that would be fine, but we tend to have enough to fill an hour every other month.
We also have a bibliographic group and a public services group. That's one rep, supposedly, one rep from each library. And then they often recommend things to the board, and then it goes to membership if they want to change something significant. And I think those are the only 2 official groups. We have a reference group, but it's not a committee. It's like an interest group. And they also have a events group. Again, that's not an official committee.
We meet 4 times a year, but it's not exactly quarterly. There's one in January to prepare for where we do a meeting, plus we do drop-in help with people that are behind on getting their statistics report done for the IMLS. But then we do one later in the spring before school ends so that the school libraries can attend. And then the 2 that we do later in the year, we do after school starts up. That way it doesn't interfere with summer reading, but it also allows the school members to attend. And we do them in person and on Zoom. We do them hybrid, where we will only have one of the meetings here in Lawrence at our office, and we do the other meetings. We go out to different places to do them. We're so spread out that if we don't go to the libraries that are 90 miles away, they won't come to us. And so we kind of we move around a bit, usually one in the north and one in the south and one in the Kansas City area every year. So, and it's for some of those libraries, it's the only meeting that they go to is the one in their area. It's the only one they'll go to all year long for any of the NEKLS meetings. Because especially for the smaller libraries, it's really hard to go 90 miles to come to a meeting in Lawrence.
Yeah, we shifted to hybrid after COVID, and it just feels like they're less effective than they were in the beginning when everybody was coming here. So we're trying to sort of reevaluate our strategies. We traditionally would do like an hour of continue ed credit and then 2 hours of meeting, and that seems like a lot. It sounds like a lot of you guys are only doing 1-hour meetings and mostly Zoom. So yeah, we have to figure out how to make them more effective, I think.
Sorry.
For the first 3 months of COVID, we did a weekly meeting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, every week, every Friday on Zoom around lunchtime for all the directors, any director that wanted to drop in and ask for help. And they were some of the most widely attended meetings we've ever had.
For those of you doing hybrid, for the full membership, as we call them, meetings, we had bought equipment for Google Meet, but everybody wants to use Zoom. So I'm thinking in the future, we may go back to, well, at least hybrid, but what do you use equipment-wise, and how effective are the hybrid meetings? Do you use an OWL, or What do you
We
use?
got an owl for free through some other program that we were doing, and it's okay. I would like to have a nicer setup. Interactivity with the online people is always a struggle because we don't require them to turn on their cameras, and the ones that do, we can often see them working the circ desk while we're training. So that's part of the problem. The people that come in person obviously get more out of it, and I appreciate having people in person because talking to the dead black screen for 3 hours is mind-numbing, to say the least. So, I mean, the owl works because it watches. I mean, people can see what's going on in the room, but I still struggle getting participation from the people on Zoom.
I usually Robin goes with me to those meetings, and so I can do the meeting and Robin can monitor Zoom. And if we do the meetings here at the NEKLS, and we take microphones with us usually when we go out to other libraries, when we do the meetings at Zoom, we have a Zoom room upstairs with two 80-inch monitors, two cameras, and like 8 microphones. So
And
we're
I should
covered pretty
mention
well.
we have the owl, but we only use it for visual. We tried to use it for audio video and it just doesn't work with our setup. So I do have a sound system set up where it's like piping a microphone into the Zoom, and then people in the room have to use stick mics to talk so that everybody can hear everything that's going on.
RCLS has stopped hybrid meetings because the feedback we got is it's the worst of both worlds. Neither the participants in the room nor those attending felt like they were the main event. Consistently negative in our evaluation form. So now we're doing training either fully in person or it's fully remote. Those are the 2 options we have.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of where we came to, because we used to do a hybrid and then we did in person for our conference, but after COVID we switched to Zoom, and because our region is much more vast, it's the entire state of Colorado, our attendance is way up when we do it all virtual, and focusing on that allows us to better tailor it to those needs a bit. And so this last one we did, we were really successful in really doing shorter segments. So instead of like doing a full, like a 40-minute presentation on something, it would be like a 15 or 20-minute, and just keeping stuff rolling. And that really kind of kept attention. Because I've definitely seen the same thing you have, Jason, of people like, or the audio will come in and you hear them checking somebody out when you're in the middle of talking. and that sort of thing. But so we just, we don't take that personally, but if we chunk that up into small pieces and then turn those into videos, that's giving us the widest distribution we can get of what our trainings.
I kind of would like to go back to meeting once a year at least, in person. But I think for them to kind of, I think we're going to have to try the hybrid to see how it is for ourselves before saying it's not going to work, that kind of thing. Maybe it will work. I don't know. But we have people on 2 islands, Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, and it's hard for them to come in person. So we have more participation in the Zoom meetings, I do think, to get the business done. But I do miss that connection. We had talked about maybe doing it once a year, but it was kind of a lukewarm reception to that.
Our experience here is that the best attended meetings are the ones where we buy everybody lunch. If you provide a meal, they will show up just for that. So
food works. But it's a lot of outlay, for a sound system and an owl. It's a lot of expense if we eventually decide hybrid is not effective. That's my concern as a small network.
Yeah, we looked out with getting the OWL. It was for some other STEM program, but since we are like a central office, most of our employees are coming in every day. We do get more use out of it than just those hybrid meetings.
I'd say from our experience, it definitely feels like hybrid is the least effective. Either going fully Zoom or fully in person make for the better meetings.
And yeah, I'm working on a survey for my people. One of my ideas was, like you guys had mentioned, having like one sort of mandatory in-person thing, or we have mandatory in-person things every year, so we have to have an annual meeting to approve our budget. So like adding my users group onto that day so that I've got everybody in the room at least once a year so we can talk things through, and then doing more frequent just Zoom things. That's kind of where I'm leaning, but we'll see. Thank you all for your input. That was very helpful.
What else is going on?
We're co-sponsoring a development with George from
me.
NEKLS. Yeah.
I just got an email about that. I got several emails about that this morning. Oh, I guess maybe at least one of them came yesterday. So,
well, I'm probably one of the email culprits
yeah,
today.
I think you are.
Yeah. So we're excited. It's to improve holes. Oh, George, please give the details. But the bug number, I have it here somewhere. I'll add it to the chat, but we're excited.
So the idea is that, you know, currently, let me look up the system preference. It has to do with local holds priority. So right now the system preference is local holds priority patron control, and local holds priority item control. And so currently you could give or don't give priority for filling holds to patrons whose pickup library or home library matches the item's home library or holding library. And what this development would do would be to add, in addition to pickup library, home library, it would throw in groups as another level, as an optional level in there. So you could say, give priority to all of the people for filling holds for patrons whose pickup library matches the home library, and then to the people whose group matches the group, and then everybody else. Or you could do patrons whose group matches the group, and then everybody else, or, you know, to mix it up in some different ways so that there's some more flexibility in there instead of just home library or pickup library priority to those matches on holds. That would help us a lot in terms of, you know, district library like we have in Donovan County, where currently if Donovan buys an item and we have local holds priority turned on. So it gives priority to the patrons who are picking up, whose pickup library matches the item's home library, and then everybody else the priority is filled in the order the holds are filled. And what we really want is we want all of the people in Donovan County to get priority on the things that any of the Donovan County libraries buy. And then the priority goes in the order that they're filled. And what Eileen wants is where where the pickup library matches the home library, and then the group, and then everybody else.
Yeah.
So that's what this development should take care of.
So we have an opportunity to meet with the developers just to make sure both networks are getting what they want. We have Martha's Vineyard and we have 6 libraries on there. So we want the hold at the pickup location, but then the another ring of preference or tier would be any other library on the vineyard. You know, so that will save on delivery going over on the ferry where books can get wet, which has happened in the past. And they have their own delivery system on the island, so we would love that. But then I think it will also be useful, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, for Falmouth, that has a main library and 2 branches. And staff go back and forth. So even though they don't have, you know, a delivery system like the island has, it would be helpful to them. And our other library that has a branch is Yarmouth. So again, people go back and forth. They're not that far apart miles wise. So yeah, so we're hoping for that. We had the great hope when we signed on that for this system that what's that thing called? The cost matrix.
The transportation cost matrix.
Transportation, to give it its full title, transportation cost matrix. We had hoped that that would work to do what we wanted, but it didn't. So
it should help a bit, but it won't solve that problem because
Exactly.
the transportation cost matrix only affects what goes onto the holds queue, not the order that things are.
And you're only allowed one option, I think, on that. You're not allowed like multiple. Like if the hold goes to one place, you're allowed one other option. As I don't know the technical terms for it, but it's limited in what you can do with it. So
Yeah, that's a bug, and it may have been fixed where it only checks the transport cost matrix once, and they were working
Yes.
on changing it so it would check it multiple times.
That's it. So anyway, I think it'll benefit places that don't have islands.
Well,
I
it'll
mean,
benefit us because, you know, right now, if Donovan County buys a book and it's at the Troy Library, it'll fill all the holds for the Troy Library. And then if there are holds at like the Highland Library, which is part of Donovan County, those won't get filled any faster than the holds at other libraries in the system. So that will definitely help us. And the same is true with our school district, where, you know, the school district, the holds will fill at the school district before they fill other places. So that will definitely be a boost for both of those libraries that have multiple branches, single libraries with multiple branches.
We'll definitely use it for a few of those multi-branch situations.
Yeah, I imagine you have situations like that too.
Yeah, not like a lot, but yeah, it'll be helpful. So I'm glad to see that all worked out.
I've been wanting this for years, and I offered to pay for it like, you know, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, and to finally have somebody that that can get their act together to put together the extra funding is nice. So
that's the condition I put down as the bad guy, the executive director. I support going to open source as long as we have a little bit of money put aside every year for that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say how much because I don't want to have to pay for everything, but it's not nearly enough, you know, but you know, and my board could say in the future, or FinCom could say in the future, no, we're not doing that. But rather than having to go to membership for a vote every time we want to do something, I said, let's do this. And they agreed. So it just takes a bit of the bureaucracy out of it. I mean, if there was a major funding project, which we kind of have with cataloging because nobody is chipping in, hint, hint. But you know, if it was a huge outlay that small amount couldn't cover, then it would have to go to a membership vote. And sometimes it's hard working at this level with the system to explain exactly why it would be a good thing.
Right.
So we're asking them to trust us with this small amount, and that if we know it's a good thing, that we'll spend the money. But you know, at some point that could be questioned. But I think it's a good thing to do because we've seen another local network that pulled out of open source because, you know, that was one of the reasons, and it wasn't on this system, but they had to go every time for a vote on a development. So.
Just out of curiosity, what cataloging developments are you interested in?
Oh, Michelle, what is that bug? It's to allow different tiers of permissions.
Oh, I remember that one, yeah.
Yeah, because we're kind of maybe a bit more locked down than some other places in that we import all the OCLC records. And the workaround is for catalogers at the libraries to use the fast add template, which is really for on the fly. So Michelle and her team have done great things, you know, for a workaround, but we'd really like different levels of cataloging permissions so that the staff at the libraries could do a bit more and could use specific templates for different types of material without having to use what is essentially an on-the-fly template.
Yeah,
So
that's
we haven't been able to afford it on our own, so.
Yeah, I was hoping our prison libraries would hop in and fund that, but they just got their budget majorly slashed, so their ability to fund the developments went from significant to nothing.
I've always wanted
thank you, Jason.
I've always wanted more than one fast add framework. I wanted the ability to create more additional types of fast add frameworks. I've always thought that would be a good development.
That might work actually, but it's just been challenging for a place that does centralized cataloging aside from our academic library. We want them to do more, but we don't want them to do too much.
Are there any other consortial level issues you guys have with permissions? I know that's always been a challenge for us.
Yeah, like we would like, well, Michelle may not like this, but we would like to give some staff who are interested and who seem to know what they're doing permissions to write reports in SQL. But we would like ownership of different reports to lock some down at central site, even though we're all working from home, but you know what I mean, at the network level. And then we would like, you know, Yarmouth maybe to have their own set of reports where they wouldn't overwrite anything else. Oh, and then the other thing we really want is we used to do a lot of reports in what is that thing, Michelle, called? Google data, like a visualization of reports, but we don't have enough access to the system.
Google Analytics?
No.
No, there's another Google, like Google Business Intelligence or something like that.
No,
is it Microsoft Business Intelligence?
Oh, I can't remember the name of it. It's Google.
It's Looker now or something.
Yeah, something that our members. Pardon?
We used to use Data Studio when we were in Europe, but now it's called Looker. But we used to have like read access, and we don't even have that, which is not good since other networks can have it, we can't. So that's kind of like
if we had the read, I mean,
thing.
We used to be on Innovative Sierra, and Innovative always had the reputation of locking everything down, and then they started to open things up. But we had the read access on Sierra where we could produce, the systems person could produce these reports, and our members loved them. They were able to tweak them, and they were a nice visualization of reports. So now they wouldn't give us the read access. So I'm still going to go back to them with that again, but we could have continued with the reports that our members loved. So, and I figure if Innovative allowed that access, why can't Koha or Bywater? So that's been disappointing, and we haven't had time to really investigate Metabase. We're a very small staff. So we would have preferred to continue with the Data Studio reports. And especially when we hear that other networks have that access and we don't. It's kind of really irritating.
Yeah, I know that they've done some revision of their privacy policies and security at Bywater. So that may be part of it. Like they used to let us import driver's license numbers, which I don't like anyways, but now they won't. So I know that they've worked on that a little bit. So that may be part of it where people that have been grandfathered into that sort of access, but still it's worth like nagging them about. I would for sure.
Yeah, this is a network that migrated later than us.
Oh, then yeah, I think you have a case.
Yeah, I never take the first no as a no. Although we've had several no's now, so maybe I should just give up gracefully. But read only. I mean, what can you do wrong? For heaven's sake. I know like cyber insurance is a big issue now. We're going through that whole MFA project here at CLAMS right now. Or we lose our cyber insurance. So I understand from that point of view, having been the person to try and get the cyber insurance. But read only, I mean, doesn't that mean what it says? That we can't do any damage?
I don't know what to say. It's not an issue I've had to deal with, so. Anything else? We got about 15 minutes left.
Is anyone else using Metabase?
We just did a demo with Bywater on it and we're interested, but I'm not seeing for the price the how well it's gonna help us. So it's not too expensive. It just doesn't seem like it's doing a whole lot other than making pretty graphs for us.
Well, our members love pretty graphs. They love the visualization of data.
Well, if you look at McKinney, Texas's website, they have a link to theirs and it looks really pretty.
Yeah, McKinney, I was just looking them up because their Metabase stuff is I mean they've got just such a lot of it that they're doing with Metabase.
Yeah, I think they were kind of Koha's test. They're their main demo for Bywater. Yeah.
I'm sorry for my ignorance. Is that academic or public?
It's public.
Oh yeah, I think Michelle has mentioned that to me before, and Brandon.
I can't remember the name of the person that came and did the demo of McKinney's Metabase site at the Lawrence conference.
Ian?
But was
it Ian?
No, it was an employee from McKinney.
Oh, I see.
And he showed off the things that they were doing with Metabase, and it was just really spectacular stuff.
I wonder, so I spun up Metabase on a virtual server and it's like really, really easy. So I wonder what Bywater would say if I wanted read-only access to my database to feed into my own local installation of Metabase, because that's basically what you're asking for. Would they reject it because they want me to buy their product? That would be upsetting. I don't know. That's hypothetical.
Way to stir the pot there, Jason.
Yeah, I'm over here stirring.
Yeah, one thing please do. I need somebody else to be a troublemaker aside from.
One of the things that I'm presenting on at the Texas conference is using report templates, and one of the things I want to try and get together before then is creating like a dashboard within Koha using those templates without having to feed it out. Because I think to make pretty charts, all we really need is a pretty chart library, as far as I can tell. So I want to try and get something together. It's probably not going to be totally fleshed out, but maybe I'll have an example of that.
Well, that ties into the permissions thing where we started this whole conversation, I think. We really would like permissions at a granular level when it comes to reports. And I'm not sure about Metabase, whether it allows that or not, but that would be swell if anybody has a bug on that. I'm sure we could come up with some money towards it, perhaps.
The only permissions thing I know that's been discussed lately is Christopher Brannon from Coeur d'Alene had a entire reimagining of how Koha could handle permissions, like a grounds up refactoring of all the permission settings to make that would allow for them to more easily be made granular.
Is that available to look at?
There was a ticket, there was a bug number, but I really can't even for the life of me think of how to look that up.
Okay, that's fine. We'll look.
It's 35693, and I'll put a link in the chat box.
Thank you.
But it would be just a complete reimagining of the permissions settings and how they work in the back end of Koha. And I remember reading it when the bug was new, but it would allow for some more growth. That's one of the things right now is the way the permissions have been created over time makes it makes any updates to permissions more complicated. So this would be a reimagining with the idea that it would be more sustainable in the future. I am pretty sure that that won't really go anywhere unless somebody's willing to put some money into it too. So.
Do any of you have the setting turned on that does not allow staff to change their logged in library? I had forgotten that that was a new permission that they'd added recently.
I know I brought
my new librarians because that's how it is by default, but my old ones I haven't gone back and changed.
I've set it up for all but a few libraries are locked out of changing.
So are they not allowed to change their home library on their own account? Like, I feel like if you changed your home library, then it would change your logged in library, wouldn't it? Or is that something?
Yeah, it would.
Okay.
I don't know
Sounds
if
like
that
a
affects it or
loophole.
not. Yeah, it's a loophole.
I would like it if they could change it to 2 of our branches. You know, they couldn't set it to any of the other ones, but they could switch between 2.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, so if you've got a group that somebody floats between or something.
That'd be really handy. I have some libraries that have branches, so obviously employees of those libraries that move between 2 buildings, they need that permission. And it would be nice if they just had a list of 2 instead of 47.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And we did notice that idea with the staff can change their home location. And then for us, that would naturally lead into if their home location is different, then suddenly they have the permissions to edit items of the home location that they've changed their home location to. So what we asked Bywater Solutions for was some jQuery that if it's a staff page, then that dropdown is grayed out, and they can't do that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that had some circulation supervisors writing a lot of emails to me in a very short amount of time when they realized that.
I thought it would be good for us, but I was voted down on it. You know, to turn this on, but Michelle is right. We do have staff that work at various different libraries, but they shouldn't be doing work for another library when they're for Library B when they're at Library A, in my opinion.
We just do different logins. So if you're at multiple branches, you have a login per branch.
Oh,
so that's separate because it's just too easy for somebody to start cataloging with the wrong login, and
well, that makes it,
stuff gets messed up.
some of the rules and things are set by the manager's logged in library or home library and things like that too. So if you had a login for that branch, that makes sense. We just they have one login that's also their library card at our library, which I find kind of interesting too. It'd be nice to have that separated out so that my private details aren't in my staff account.
That's why we do keep those separate. For staff, they have multiple accounts, one for using the library and one for working. So, and I've got all of the staff patron category set up so that if somebody tries to check something out on their staff account, there are no circs allowed, no overrides, no renewals, nothing. They just can't circulate or put holds or anything like that on a staff account.
That's an interesting idea. Yeah.
So we have shared accounts as well. We have a circ login, a circulation supervisor login, a technical services login, and then we have some for both circulation and technical services. We have some like minimum logins for their like students or whatever that need to use it, so they have really locked down permissions.
We have been moving away from that. I've been working library by library and moving staff from, it used to be there was a director account, a tech account, a circ account, and at some libraries an aid account that didn't have any permission except to check things in and out for student aids usually. But we started moving away from that because we had issues at a couple of libraries where a staff member was terminated and then they went home and then they tried to log in. And in both of those cases, well, in one case, they logged in from home as library tech, and they went to a different staff member's personal library card and wrote a whole bunch of horrible things about them in the notes. And then they tried to do some other mischief with that account, and we changed the password on it. And then the staff at that library kept encountering, we have the system set up so if you try and log in with the incorrect password more than 5 times in a row, then it blocks that account. And so the staff kept getting blocked. They couldn't log into their library accounts to do their work because this person kept blocking the accounts. And that's what happened at the other library. As soon as they terminated at this other library, as soon as they terminated the person, we changed the login, we changed the password, and then they kept trying to hack in and do some mischief. And we ended up changing the name on that account and deleted the old accounts. They couldn't do that anymore. But because of that, we've been moving towards individual logins, which does add some accountability.
Yeah, I like the idea of individual logins. That's probably what we would do, is do that separately and then have your own library card that's not a staff card would be my ideal.
And that's what the libraries that have switched over, that's the way it's working out. So
how on earth we're the only shared accounts we have are circ.
Yeah.
You know, where they might have, this is probably an exaggeration, but 5 to 10 different people, you know, rotating, and they don't want to have the individual logging in and out. So we've got rid of the other shared accounts as far as I know. But the circ, you know, having worked on a circ desk, I understand where directors are coming from, or circ supervisors, that it's very hard to have individual logins for every single circ person, but I'd love to hear maybe at another meeting, you know, how people overcame that and moved to individual
We make
accounts.
everybody log in with their Microsoft account into the computer as a whole. So when they walk away from the computer, they have to log out of the computer, and then the other person logs in and logs into their own Koha stuff. And there is at times where that switchover can be a problem, but we have multiple computers at the front desk. So, you know, somebody can grab the other computer if they need to, but that's our IT requirement. They can't be using each other's computer logins.
Well, we have single sign-on using their email account, their Gmail. But they don't have to have individual Gmail accounts per library if they work at multiple libraries. But like some of our smaller libraries might have two, if they're lucky, two circ terminals. And different people use them all the time. So what would end up happening is you'd have, you know, person B using person's A login.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see that happening. But it's not only different staff, you know, having multiple people, it's people at the one time sharing.
Yeah.
One or two.
Yeah, and especially the
computers.
smaller libraries are going to have that issue more often because you might just have somebody covering their break or something, or But since, you know, at our branch does it this way, but some of the other branches in the system also have just a login for circulation and a login for the director and stuff. So we're kind of all over the place with our consortium.
We're all over the place right now, but we're moving towards individual logins.
We took this opportunity. Sorry, go ahead, George.
No, go ahead, Alex.
We took this opportunity to really push that security message. We had been using shared logins probably for decades, even before I got here. It's just not a risk we were willing to take anymore. So we went into this migration with the understanding on the other side of this, we will be using individual logins. And the pushback came exactly where you said it would come from, Eileen. It's those smaller libraries that said, you know, we open these terminals up in the morning and we flit about, we do things in the back and the front. And it's, my message was we've been getting away with it for so long. It was only a matter of time before something goes wrong. We have a security issue. And shared logins allow you to work in a certain way that individual logins don't. You might have to rethink how that works. You might have to rethink, oh, when I'm stationed here, I'm stationed at this computer. And when I walk away from it, I log out. And we have faced some resistance from that. And we have some people saying, you know, on Go Live, that might be my last day. And we're sorry to see you go. But it was important to us to have individual logins for security, especially because we're not restricting access to Koha via IP or any other protection. So because we're not limiting it by physical access, we kind of have to limit it in another way. I think it would just be negligent to do it otherwise.
Right. That's, you know, what the issue we had would have never happened if it would have been, you know, one of the things that I've tried to do is I have a lot of jQuery that adds notes to things like when you pay a fine, there's the note field. And I've got some jQuery on our system that takes the logged in username and automatically plugs that into the note field. So it becomes painfully obvious who's logged in. And it's not because I couldn't track that in other ways. You can write a report that says who accepted money for a payment or who did this or who did that. But this makes it obvious to staff without having to run a report who did these kinds of things. And when people start to see, you know, my name is going to be on all of the mistakes that somebody else made, then they're more likely to get used to logging out. Everybody's disappearing, and it's because we've gone past lunchtime. It's lunchtime here in the Midwest. So I'm going to stop the recording, and we'll see everybody again in July. And have a good time, everybody. I'm going to stop right now.